There sure is a lot coming out around this article. Yesterday I did a video. A'ja Wilson named the Time Athlete of the Year, Time Magazine. Somebody did have a great question in the comments. Who reads Time these days? That's a good point. That's a hell of a point, to be quite honest with you. But it seems that Time Magazine has reverted back to its DEI award days, right?
It didn't end with a press release. It ended with a phone buzzing and everything collapsing. Years of control, years of power, gone before the call even disconnected. No farewell tour, no warning, just silence, and suddenly, a name nobody saw coming was standing in the center of the storm. So what really happened behind closed doors? Who made the call that flipped the hierarchy overnight? And why are people who've stayed quiet for years suddenly choosing sides? This isn't just about one figure falling. It's about how fast loyalty evaporates when influence shifts, how narratives are rewritten in real time, and how the system decides, without mercy, who remains useful and who becomes disposable. The ripple effects won't stay contained. Expect alliances to fracture. Expect old tensions to surface. And expect the definition of untouchable to change forever. Because what happened here wasn't random. It was a message. And everyone watching just realized, nobody is safe anymore.
That's a great honor. Congratulations to A'ja. But I'm like, what is all this ruckus about? So then we dive deep into it, and it seems like there's some paragraphs from this article that put down Caitlin Clark in order to prop up A'ja, which is crazy because if you guys remember, Caitlin Clark was Time's Sportsperson of the Year just last year. So I haven't actually gone into detail reading these. I wanted to live react to them with you. This video might be a little rambly, a little ranty, but let's jump right in. So these are
4 years, the idea of A'ja Wilson being left out wasn't even a conversation. She wasn't just part of Team USA, she defined it. Automatic, unchallenged, beyond debate. And that's why the moment it happened, the entire sport froze. No build-up, no public warning. Just a decision that cracked the illusion of permanence and sent a silent jolt through women's basketball. What looked stable suddenly wasn't. What felt guaranteed was no longer protected. This wasn't just a roster move. It was a signal. A reminder that even the most dominant names aren't immune when the balance of power shifts behind the scenes. And in one quiet moment, the hierarchy changed, not loudly but permanently. Women's basketball didn't just lose a certainty that day. It learned a new rule: nothing is untouchable anymore.
Now, A'ja Wilson, she got to get this award. And somehow, some way, nothing can ever be done involving A'ja Wilson without either Time Magazine or the sports media using Caitlin Clark's name to get everybody riled up because they called Caitlin Clark's fans toxic, racial, divisive, yada, yada, yada. In other words, used an article to crap on you guys. You, the Caitlin Clark.
For a long time, A'ja Wilson played with the confidence of someone who thought the decision had already been made. Her place wasn't something to fight for anymore, it was assumed. Secured by medals, trophies, and a resume so heavy it felt untouchable. But the game doesn't freeze for history. What once guaranteed access began to matter less than timing, fit, and where the sport was actually going. Momentum started outweighing memory. Chemistry started beating reputation. And quietly, the league stopped rewarding what was and started prioritizing what worked now. That shift didn't happen overnight, but the consequences did. Because legacy can open doors. It just doesn't decide who stays inside anymore.
Y'all are from the Nat. As of this moment, the Pacers are up 2-1 in the finals. Has there been anything that surprised you so far in the series? Obviously, Oklahoma City was the best team in the NBA all year, but right now they're not looking like themselves.
What surprised me is just it being the Pacers in the finals.
We aligned in that, brother. I didn't see that coming.
Right.
Okay, well, are y'all fans of the W? We also have the Fever in Indiana as well. What do y'all make of Caitlin Clark's run?
So when the call came in that Friday morning, it felt routine. The kind of check-in reserved for veterans. Travel plans. Timelines. Another formality in a long line of confirmations. That's why she answered without hesitation. But this wasn't about schedules. It wasn't about ceremonies. And it definitely wasn't business as usual. In a matter of seconds, the story she'd been living by was rewritten. Not adjusted. Not delayed. Replaced. One conversation was all it took to turn certainty into doubt and flip a career narrative that had never been questioned before. And in that moment, the message was unmistakable. The past no longer guaranteed the future.
Of the year last year. And in that article, she was asked multiple times about these narratives around Caitlyn and the racial divide that happens in America and specifically around women's basketball. It has gotten so insane, and she has denounced it so many times. She said it in the Times article that she doesn't want her name to be used for these different negative and divisive things that it's used for. And the fact that Time Magazine named her Sports Person of the Year in 2024 and then in 2025 turn around and put something like this in an article, by the way, you guys, that is supposed to prop up.
This wasn't a reduced role. It wasn't a leadership assignment. It wasn't rest, rotation, or a quiet pause. She was gone. No slot on the roster. No international reset. No global stage waiting down the road. Just a clear, irreversible signal that Team USA had already turned the page. What rattled the people closest to her wasn't only the decision, it was how obvious it looked once it happened. Her entire year had been built around that assumption. Endorsements passed up. Training cycles reworked. Public comments made with the confidence of someone who believed her name existed on a permanent list. That belief turned out to be the flaw. Because while she was moving on legacy and expectation, USA Basketball was moving on spreadsheets, lineup chemistry, audience pull, and long-term optics. This wasn't emotional. It was clinical. And it had been forming long before the call ever came. Afterward, her words shifted. Still composed. Still careful. Framed as respect for the grind, concern for veterans, frustration with how fast narratives move. Nothing overt. Nothing explosive. But taken together, the message was clear. She didn't see it coming, and by the time she did, the decision had already been made. And that's the part no one wants to admit. This didn't come out of nowhere. It just came out all at once.
Oh yeah, this is not a video that I want to ever have to make. It's not a great video, and it's just unfortunately again something that has to be talked about because, and by the way, this is something that I would love to kind of not bring up ever, because this is a topic that is in basketball, and at the end of the day, I would much rather be talking about Team USA camp in a positive light. But at the end,
as Clark's visibility skyrocketed, the temperature changed. The language got tighter. The praise got narrower. Suddenly, the conversation wasn't about gravity, playmaking, or how defenses were warping in real time. It was about cherry-picked shooting splits. Impact was reduced to isolated numbers, context stripped away, and credit subtly redirected toward unnamed veterans, who, according to the new framing, were far more deserving of attention. Every breakthrough Clark had didn't spark celebration. It triggered revision. Benchmarks were redefined. Standards were moved. Achievements were resized to fit a more comfortable narrative. And while none of it crossed a line on its own, the accumulation didn't go unnoticed. Because the breaking point wasn't a quote. It wasn't an interview. It was the ripple effect. Inside USA Basketball, quiet concerns started surfacing. Would camps feel divided? Would leadership feel aligned? Would unresolved friction bleed into preparation and performance on the international stage? For an organization that treats cohesion like a competitive advantage, that question alone was enough. While her representation scrambled to make sense of how a two-time Olympic gold medalist could be excluded in favor of a newcomer with no World Cup resume, the explanation had already been compiled, not in a meeting room but in plain sight. This wasn't about one comment taken the wrong way. It was about a pattern. And USA Basketball didn't see a veteran being misread. They saw a variable they could no longer afford. That's when the decision stopped being difficult and started being inevitable.
A'ja Wilson hit the game winner with 2.2 seconds left on the clock. Her number is 22, so the stars aligned for A'ja, and she hit this shot over Alyssa Thomas and DeWanna Bonner. This play was drawn up with 5 seconds left on the clock. So the Aces had the ball. There was about 20 seconds left on the clock. They're dribbling around, nothing's happening, and Coach Becky Hammon calls a timeout with 5 seconds left on the clock. And I remember in my head thinking, this is the perfect scenario for the Aces. 5 seconds is almost the perfect amount of time to make a play happen, because if you do make...
What they saw wasn't conflict, it was incompatibility. A growing pattern of friction. A leadership presence that couldn't fully align with the sport's most powerful new orbit. And while that reality was settling in on one end, a very different call was being made on the other. This one wasn't delicate. It wasn't ambiguous. It was decisive. Caitlin Clark wasn't just informed she made the team. She was told the team was being built around her. Primary ball handler. Offensive driver. The public standard bearer for Team USA heading into the 2026 World Cup. This wasn't hype management. It was execution. Months earlier, internal planning had already shifted. The system had been redesigned to match Clark's tempo, her spatial pull, and the way she raises everyone on the floor even when she's not scoring. Analysts had logged how defenses bent the moment she crossed half court. How spacing improved without play calls. How her reads translated cleanly to international rules and tighter windows. At some point, the conclusion became unavoidable. Clark stopped being a piece. She became the framework. And the off-court reality only reinforced it. Her commercial reach wasn't a side benefit. It was an amplifier. With global campaigns already in motion, USA Basketball recognized the scale of what she represented. Not just wins, but visibility. Not just medals, but market expansion. Doors that had never fully opened were suddenly unlocked. And the contrast mattered. No bitterness. No entitlement. No narrative management. Just production, alignment, and momentum. That's when the shift was complete. One era didn't end loudly. Another simply took control, and the program followed.